So it seems contradictory at first, but Crowley also said elsewhere that facts are only true above the abyss insofar as they contradict themselves. And I think that, we're talking about fundamental forces of nature in a way that are far beyond our own rational comprehension of things. And so these contradictions are not necessarily a marker of some kind of falsehood, but rather they lead to deeper truths. In particular, we're talking about in this section of the Creed that chaos is the father of life. Not life itself, but the father of life. And it makes sense that as the father of life, there would be an absence of life. Because life is born of an absence of life in nature. When you have a desert, just add water and you'll have a rainforest. In the physical universe, conservation of energy demands that no energy be lost or gained. There's always the same amount of energy in the universe. So if you have a total absence of any apparent energy, that means you have the maximum of potential energy. So utter desolation would indicate the absolute maximum in potential without form. This is the beginning of creation. There's also one passage in the Vision of the Voice which could suggest an alternate spelling for the word chaos. And chaos is a Greek word, but there could be like a formulaic spelling, so to speak. It doesn't match the conventional Greek spelling, but it may indicate some new depths of correspondence. From the seventh Aether, now there is a word of 4 letters that containeth in itself all the mystery of the Tetragrammaton. So that's the first word it's going to mention. The second word, and there is a word of 7 letters which it concealeth, and that again concealeth the holy word that is the key of the abyss. There's a great deal of commentary on this passage, which seems to be summarized in the footnote 5, which says, these words are probably Babylon, chaos, and terror. These correspondences, along with some further suggestions that are in the commentary in the footnote that I mentioned on the above passage, deserve a great deal of thought and meditation. There's a lot in there. So I recommend you look it up. We can also Kabbalistically see that chaos is the father of life. If we do Pithmanes, which is a Greek Kabbalistic practice, similar to the Hebrew Aik Bikur, which is, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but adding the numerals of a word's value. So if you have 156, you'd add 1 plus 5 plus 6 to get a kind of root value. And using Notaricon, which is where you correspond the initial letters to some kind of core concept. The value of chaos, the original Greek spelling, is 871. If you use Pithmanes, you add the 8, the 7, and the 1, you get 16, and then you add the 1 and the 6, and you get 7. 7 is the value of the letter zeta in Greek, which in the Greek Notaricon traditionally stands for Zoe, life. And Crowley wrote that only a master of the temple may comprehend the mystery of chaos. So, yeah, Kaf, Ayin, Vow, Samek. Oh, and just looking over my notes, I noticed I neglected to mention earlier about Hedone. It also kind of sounds like Adonai, which means Lord. What do you say?
The 7 letters conceals the what, which conceals the 4 and the 4 was...
Oh, let's see, what does it say? There's a word of 4 letters that containeth in itself all the mystery of the Tetragrammaton. And then a word of 7 letters which it concealeth, Babylon, and that again concealeth the holy word that is the key of the abyss, which may be chaos. He doesn't seem to have them in order in his footnote. He says Babylon, chaos, terror. So it's kind of like, But
so
as
tarot is the 4-letter word referred to, then chaos.
right, he spells chaos in English here, and he has capital C, lowercase h, capital AOS, which leads me to think.
Yeah.
But so the final part of this in the creed, clause of the creed, and in one air, the nourisher of all that breathes. It's kind of odd that, like, we've talked about the Lord in various aspects, including the secret and ineffable and the solar, and then air is just kind of almost seems like tacked on at the end. I mean, it's one of the alchemical elements. The original Greek word for air is also air, alpha, eta, rho, and carries additional translations of mist and cloud. Just physically speaking, in terms of the way that air relates to the symbolism, clearly it's true that air is the nourisher of all that breathes. I don't know of any life on Earth that could transmute base matter into energy without... Oh, there are anaerobes, but they still have gases that they...
It's one of the other gases.
Right. Right. Mm-hmm. And the other thing that life needs to survive is sunlight, and that's sometimes indirect. Like there's the extremophiles that live, at the bottom of the ocean next to little volcanoes, but they get energy from the earth, which is really a chilled spark of the sun. So ultimately, all energy that we get comes from the sun, and that's nourished through the air. The value of the word air, the Greek word air, is 109, which corresponds to Hera. It's just eta rho alpha instead of alpha eta rho. Hera, the second wife and sister of Zeus. She's known as the perfected one, and she's known for ultimate and equal rulership with Zeus of the world, of the Greek gods, and the earth. Philolaus, a Pythagorean, related the element of air to Dionysus, and a bishop of Caesarea attributed air to Athena. Plato corresponds the element to the octahedron in the correspondence of the five perfect solids. If we use Pithmanes on the word air, just adding the digits of the number 109, it eventually reduces to 1. And the initial A, alpha, is traditionally attributed to air by Notarikon, as is the Hebrew aleph, and they all have the value of 1. And I think that this is kind of interesting in the sense of the fact that we've talked about the secret and ineffable Lord and the Son, and now we're talking about air, and we can think about that maybe as a kind of new trinity of Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. And that the air eventually reduces down to symbols, including one, or symbols referring to one, brings us back to the idea of this all being one Lord. The Greek alpha, which this all reduces down to, is also the first letter traditionally corresponding to the word Anatole, which means east or sunrise. Now we've talked about the one line from the collect, or not from the collect, from the creed, and that was the first instance of the use of the word Lord.